biggest problem to tackle in metal and decarbonizing or making it more sustainable is the high purity refining. You can get something to 80% or 90%.
But basically, you're finishing it.
You're finishing it.
It's a metal finishing operation. Picture yourself as the heir to a family business that stretches back through 5 generations. Today, we have the privilege of having Sam Sabin as our guest. He represents the unbroken line of the Sabin family, who have dedicated themselves to the art of refining precious metals for decades.
What we've been looking at is the carbon intensity of a recycled ounce versus a primary ounce directly from a mine.
Where I was going with this.
Yeah, it's about 95% or above.
Sam Sabin's story is a testament to the enduring power of a family's business and the commitment to creating a greener, more sustainable future.
I'm actually named after my grandfather who incorporated the business. People started to call the facility asking for Mr. Sabin. At that time, our last name wasn't Sabin. It didn't exist because it was a made-up name. So we actually changed our last name because of the company.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty funny. It's normally it's the opposite.
I'm your host, Ed Schwenk, and welcome to another episode of Noble Six Talks.
Welcome, Sam. Thank you for coming to our podcast today.
Hello, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So for our viewers, we have Sam Sabin of Sabin Metals. Now, I've seen your LinkedIn profile, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it says a sustainability enthusiast. Can you expand on that for us?
I would rather put that as sustainability advocate. I think enthusiast sounds like it's, half in, half out.
Right.
Advocate's a little more dedicated, I'd say. But in terms of what that means is I did my graduate degree at Columbia in sustainability management, which really kind of drew me into the science around sustainability, climate science. And for me, it's something that I'm passionate about and wanted to bring into our family organization at Sabin Metals. And so, yeah, I guess sustainability obviously has a lot of different definitions. I don't want to define it on the podcast and have any fingers pointing at me. But there's a lot of, we actually even at the IPMI, we had a huge discussion on what we were going to name the committee, whether that to be sustainability or ESG. In my eyes, ESG is a little bit more banking, corporate focused, whereas it's more of like a subset of sustainability. Sustainability has a broader context. But yeah, I think for me, sustainability has always been something I'm passionate about, rooted in my childhood. I grew up with 2 parents who are environmentalists on the Eastern Long Island, and essentially they raised me to really kind of be a steward for our environment and, essentially spread the word and be able to take that forward.
Well, it's interesting, the industry that you guys are engaged in, recycling of precious metals. Well, that is the definition of, reuse. It's not mining primary, heavy carbon polluting. Secondary refining is much less of a carbon footprint. So to me, that's almost a definition of sustainability. Now, I know that there's efficiencies within the system that can be wrung out and improved upon. And we're seeing new technologies now beginning to emerge and come to the forefront in that area. But I'd like to know more about Sabin. What does Sabin do?
Yeah, great question. So Sabin Metal, we are recyclers and refiners of precious metals, focusing in on platinum group metals. Obviously, you guys are familiar with platinum group metals being at the IPMI, but we focus mainly on precious metal catalysts. Our 2 main feedstocks are ceramic-based catalysts and carbon-based catalysts, but we also do a variety of other secondary industrial byproducts that contain precious metals. So plating solutions, some electronic scrap, some sweeps, things like that that you find in industrial settings. And then kind of bringing that into form, we go all the way from secondary byproduct all the way to pure metal.
Right.
And so our main outputs are precious metal sponge, platinum palladium sponge.
All the way through the refinery.
Correct. Yeah, and we're actually one of 33 refineries in the world that are LPPM certified good delivery. So we're audited on a yearly basis to get that certification.
When did the organization begin?
Great Great question. So it's a long family history. I'm actually named after my grandfather who incorporated the business, but starting in the 20th century, my great-grandfather was collecting scrap on the streets of Brooklyn. So immigrated over from Russia and was collecting things from doorknobs to tires in a shopping cart. And he was actually homeless.
Wow.
And kind of like a very true
Kind of a
Horatio
rags to
Algier.
riches story, right?
Exactly, Horatio Algier story. And and then in 1945, they've built up a business, and obviously it was the height of World War II. My grandfather, Sam, who I'm named after, him and his business partner, Ben, went to create Sabin Metal. And so originally the name was supposed to be spelled Saben, not Sabin for Sabin. But they found that Sabin with an E was already taken and trademarked. So they changed the E to an I. And then that was kind of the birth of Sabin Metal. And then people started to call the facility asking for Mr. Sabin. At that time, our last name wasn't Sabin. It didn't exist because it was a made-up name. So we actually changed our last name because of the company.
Oh, wow.
Which is
that's
pretty
such a
funny.
neat
It's normally it's
story.
the opposite.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting, funny family story.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Been around a long time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it looks like every decade, more capability is added, capacity's increased, new product lines brought on. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're in our 5th generation now. So
What's the footprint for the company? Where are the operations located?
yeah, so we're about 400 strong. The average employee has been with us for about 11 years. Skewed down, if you were just to look at that's just because of the newer facilities we've brought online, it's changed that number. So if you go to our main plant up in Scottsville, New York, near Rochester, the majority of those employees have been with us 20, 30 years plus. We have some folks who've been with us for over 40 years. So really dedicated bunch. And we have 3 facilities. We have Scottsville, New York, where our main plant is, our high purity refining circuits are. Then we have our Sabin West facility out in Williston, North Dakota. And then finally, we have our cobalt facility up in Ontario, Canada.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. What exactly do you do for the company?
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Good answer. yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just the front man.
Right? I'm the face of the company.
That'd be a nice job to have, right?
Yeah.
They just send me to conferences and I pretend to
Send
know what
the
I'm
face.
doing.
Go get business.
Exactly. Here's some business cards. Pretend you know what you're doing. No, essentially, my role is a bit of a hybrid capacity. So I work across sales, marketing, and sustainability. Prior to my graduate degree, I was working in programmatic media buying. So I have a background in marketing. So I did my undergraduate in business and focused on marketing. And then I went to an agency where I ran the New York Times account. And so I was managing most of their budget. And so I wanted to take that experience and bring it to Sabin. We had an older, more archaic marketing style. And obviously our the way we're marketing is different. It's not B2C. We're doing a B2B business.
Right.
And so the way we operate is a lot different. And, our mediums of reaching our customer are different. So I kind of rethought that, but also redid most of our branding. So in 2021, we did a major rebrand. We also redid our whole entire website. So it's in tip-top shape.
You got to do it. Yep, that's what's necessary.
Yeah, I think it's adjusting to the market. I really like the Noble 6 branding, by the way.
Oh, thank
I think
you.
you guys do a great job.
Yeah, well, we're lucky to have been able to grab it before someone else did.
That's right.
It's funny, there's just because you mentioned Noble 6 brand, veterans in the industry, they connect with the brand because they kind of understand Noble and where we're going with the 6 because of the 6 platinum group elements on the periodic table. So I always thought that was interesting to see that how it resonated with veterans in the industry.
Yeah. Especially here at the IPMI, they get it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's funny when you say platinum group metals. I think if you're a regular consumer or, just someone on the street, no one would guess. If you say, what are the 6, platinum group metals? And I think osmium is the hidden one, right? No one talks about osmium, but now you have the Osmium Institute, right? So raising more awareness about osmium.
Right.
And then, the minor PGMs, ruthenium, iridium.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Can't forget the majors. Platinum, palladium, rhodium.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
Yep.
right.
That's all the autocatalyst PGMs right there.
That's right.
And so what is it really that, gets you excited?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, it's bringing in sustainability innovation into metals. I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's definitely an industry that's harder to abate in terms of a carbon standpoint.
Right.
But then there's other issues as well that I think get kind of pushed off from the mainstream talk of things. So, for example, at Sabin, we've done a materiality assessment to figure out what sustainability issues are most material to our business, our stakeholders, internal and external, and we found that it's obviously responsible chemical usage. We do chemical refining at Sabin as well as pyrometallurgy, but it's so responsible chemical usage, water management, and then waste management. And those are more on the environmental side. We used a variety of different metrics to choose from to basically figure out what those main issues are. But it actually, carbon intensity was not one of them. Interestingly enough, it was a moderate material issue, but this was a survey that we put out to our clients as well. And I think it's just because in a lot of ways we were a small part of the value chain. We're taking in spent material. A lot of our customers are just focused on the production of their product.
Right.
In a lot of ways, we would just be a Scope 3 emissions percentage of their production, or of their company.
Of their company.
Of their company. So we're more of an afterthought, sadly. But I
That's interesting. You put it that way, right?
Yeah, but you have to wrap your hands around it. You have to quantify it and understand it.
Exactly, and it's still, we are looking across the board on how we can improve. And I think if you look at sustainability as a value proposition, there's a lot of ways to use it to your advantage and not only benefit the world and the environment, but also there's money to be made by using that as a competitive advantage and showing your customers that you actually care.
Well, what do you think of the term of green recycled PGMs?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of talk about what is considered a recycled ounce in precious metals. I think you see gold. There's a lot of talk about recycled gold and what is included in that definition of recycled gold. Does it include production scrap? Does it include certain parameters? And so there's been lots of arguments of
how much of it is mine produced versus recycled?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And then what we've been looking at is the carbon intensity of a recycled ounce versus a primary ounce directly from a mine.
Right.
Which is, the differentials.
That's where I was going with this.
Yep. Yeah, it's 95. It's about 95% or above. So a recycled ounce has a carbon intensity of 95% less than a primary ounce.
I thought it was less than that. I thought it was in the mid 80s.
That's pretty
95%.
High,
Yeah, depending on what you're looking at and what reports you're looking at, I would say 95 or above.
Now, going into the future, with your crystal ball, how important do you think that is from a industrial consumer's perspective?
I think there's a lot of complexities that people don't think about. If you're only looking at it from the carbon lens, you're missing out on the water, you're missing out on the chemicals, but you're also missing out on the energy efficiencies. So in most cases, the way a refinery works is it's in a mass balance approach, right? So you're sampling, you're doing your analytical, and you're doing your value determination. This is how much metal there is. This is the value content, and then from there, you're commingling like materials.
Right.
And so you may have a low ore that you're bringing in alongside another different secondary material into your refinery line. So I think it's a hard conversation because it's almost a compromise. You know, are you going to leave equipment idle because you only want to run secondary material, or are you going to operate at full capacity and maximize, you know, your energy efficiencies? So there's different arguments and different things that people are talking about that are not talking about yet that need to kind of come to the table. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a good point you just brought up.
I think it's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we're looking at, you know, going into the future, we have to really be very mindful of how we need to steward our impact on the environment and the operations that we conduct in our secondary metals processing industry. I think primary is a different topic, right? Secondary is much higher grade, lower energy, but then we have the old school, you know, acid refining approach, which is very standard and very well applied. But then we also have newer technologies that are coming on that are consuming less chemicals and less energy, less off-gassing, which we discussed prior to the podcast, which is interesting. And I'd like to see where that goes in the next couple of years.
I agree. I think if you can do more with less, that's
more with less.
That is the golden, you know, ticket, right?
Yeah, if we can use less energy, less consumables,
exactly,
less of a footprint, less carbon, less off-gassing, all of that.
All of that.
That's the way to go.
My biggest, I think the biggest issue, or not biggest issue, the biggest problem to tackle in metal and decarbonizing, or at least making it more sustainable,
right,
however you want to define that,
sure, is
the high purity refining. Because at some point, it's really, you know, you can get something to, you know, an 80% or 90%.
But basically, you're finishing it.
You're finishing it.
It's a metal finishing operation. It's not. It's not the main focus,
right,
of the process at that point.
Agreed. Yeah, I think from the technologies that we've seen, it's someone who's getting it to that 80 or 90%, which is the important part, right? That's where most of your energy input's going in, for most of your water's going in, but you're still always going to need to make it to a certain purity to be usable too.
Well, the old timer that mentored me way back before time always said that, what are you focused on? Are you focused on the majors, or are you focused on the minors? And that will help you decide what your methodology should be to get to your end product. And so, you know, if you've got a higher purity item, then you're really focused on the minors. Versus if it's lower, then you have to deal with all of the base metal that you have to pull out and extract. And it consumes a lot of chemicals.
Yeah.
At least on the old flow sheet.
Totally.
Yeah. So what do you think? We were having some conversations earlier today about the platinum, palladium, rhodium supply demand issues in the auto catalyst market primarily, and where we're seeing the on the demand side equation of new car sales and the like, where demand is coming off a little bit, and OEMs are not buying as much rhodium and palladium, and we're also seeing the effects now of the switch in preference on the loadings from palladium to platinum. So now we're seeing that effect as well, and the pricing coming down. And where do you see that in your view going into the future, as far as you know, that balance, that supply demand balance, pricing? I know that when I entered this industry, well before you did, palladium was $75 an ounce.
Wow.
So when I saw $2,000 an ounce palladium recently, I said, wow.
Yeah.
Right? Just the opposite of what you just said, right? And we experienced rhodium, probably in the $2,500 an ounce range to $3,500 an ounce range for a lot of years. And then we saw this major spike. Now it's coming down. You have a gut feel for where that's going in the next few years?
I wouldn't say I could. So Sabin doesn't do any forecasting.
No, I'm not
or
asking
anything.
about forecasting.
Yeah,
Just,
but
what's
from
your
my
gut telling you?
Yeah, my personal opinion. Sam's personal opinion.
What's Sam think about that?
I think it's interesting. I think from at least the conference so far, what I've taken away is people are pretty bearish on Palladium, the future of Palladium, which is something I think it's a new conversation. And I think one of the things I haven't really understood is normally it's that conversation of if you see Palladium dropping and you see platinum overtaking in terms of price, then you see a substitution. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that will be as dramatic as we've seen in the past due to the new entrance into the market with battery electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles.
Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. So I don't know. I think that's been a really interesting takeaway. From a pricing perspective, I think platinum has always been that kind of disregarded metal. You always think it's going to have its day, and it never does. But I'm hoping that the bullishness of platinum will come back.
Well, platinum was always the stepsister to gold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We used to call it something else, but we won't say.
In the jewelry industry, we were focused on refining the gold, and the platinum was kind of in the way and caused issues, and we had to deal with that. And now, going into the future, and we're talking about, of course, again today, the PEM electrolyzers and the hydrogen economy, where we are pushing for decarbonization by 2050, pretty much starting by 2035, right? So we've got to ramp up PEM electrolyzers, right? That's going to take a certain amount of iridium and maybe some platinum and ruthenium as well. What I'm seeing from a demand perspective, there's going to be a significant amount of iridium that's required to get from here to there between 2035 and 2050. Mm-hmm. But we got to get to 2035 first. And I'm kind of the opinion that we're going to see primary mine production trail off in South Africa, where 85% of this iridium is mined. And so we're going to see a fall in production, but demand at the same time is going the opposite direction. That's a tough nut to crack, isn't it?
I think it's interesting. I believe, I think the headlines at a lot of these conferences, the Aridium Shortage, Johnson Matthey's coming out with their Aridium Shortage paper. And so what I think people don't realize and what you don't really see is there's a lot of opportunity for substitution and technological advancements. People are testing out ruthenium.
Yes.
There's also alloys that I think could potentially come into play. So I don't foresee it being a problem that we can't tackle.
I agree.
And I think there's a lot of smart people that are a lot smarter than I that are working on this. Yeah. And they'll figure it out. But
they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's a nice headline more than it is a problem, to be my humble opinion. But we're doing some, we've taken in fuel cells. Mm-hmm. We've done some initial entrance into the hydrogen space. We have some clients in the hydrogen space. It's something that we're watching, but it's an industry that, the way that our capabilities are set up is, we're set up to do a large scale operation. And so we're trying to figure out what that looks like in terms of hydrogen. And, right now we're in the actual, not market, but we're expanding, we're doubling our refining capacity, our high purity refining circuit. So we're trying to kind of ensure that we have enough capacity to fit any potential demand.
For platinum.
Yes, for platinum, palladium,
right.
Primarily. Right. But yeah, we're, on the platinum side of things, there's only a few folks who really, work in iridium. It's a very niche market.
It is.
It's something we've explored, but it's, it's a very tight market. So is a lot of the minor PGMs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Sounds like a lot of good stuff you guys are working on.
Yeah, we're expanding in nitric acid. We're expanding in our high purity refining circuit. We're building a new lab, and there's a lot of exciting stuff going on at Sabin right now. So we're pretty pumped for the future, and I would say we're bullish on PGMs going forward. I think a lot of people are bearish, but I think there's a good opportunity for these metals to be used in a lot of advanced technologies that we don't even know yet. So it'll be exciting to see where the market goes.
That's for sure.
Agreed.
We're here at the IPMI Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, and what do you get out of the IPMI? What's so exciting about the IPMI for you? I see you walking around, smiling, talking
He's the
to
face.
people.
That's why we see him.
You're enjoying yourself, but what is it about the IPMI for you?
That's a great question. I think it feels like home. It feels like a family. I've been coming to I've been coming to IPMI since I was 3. So I was actually at IPMI Acapulco back when there were parties on the beach in Mexico. And,
Wow.
and it's come a long ways. I don't remember it, obviously, way back then. But
What year was that?
I think it was 98 was my first technically IPMI.
Wow.
Growing up in a metals commodities family, it's always been kind of in my blood. And you see a lot of folks who've, are friends, and, you built a lot of connections over the last 20, 30 years. Yeah. And it's always, you're like, oh, I know your brother, I know your dad, I know. And so it's a family. And I think that's what makes this event so special every year, for everyone to come together. And it's such a small group of people focused on, if you think about it, a very niche industry in the scheme of things. And so it does feel like a family down here. And I think it's a really special event to have everyone coming together.
Yeah. No,
that was good.
Yeah.
It's great to see you guys again.
Yeah. We got to connect again and commiserate a little bit.
That's right.
That's good. Sam, thank you. We appreciate you making a little bit of time to sit and talk with us and let us, get the word out a little bit about what you're passionate about and what you get excited about.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on board. It's really great to speak with you both and see you again.
All right. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.